Hi, this is part 2 of 4 of my postings about ME. Part 1 was a brief introduction to ME. Part 2 is a detailed look at some of the symptoms that I experience because of the illness, and a look at the background to my illness. I'm including this to give you an idea of the kind of things that an individual patient goes through, rather than just giving you a set of general symptoms that sometimes don't really convey that much. I'm also interested in hearing other people's stories, the background to their illness and what they go through. I find it quite interesting and often quite helpful. I also discuss the term CFS in this section as well. I'll probably split this part into 3 parts, A, B and C, to make it easier to watch and upload, as it's grown a bit longer than I intended it to. If you're more interested in general comments and points for discussion, then you could try skipping to part C, where I talk about the term CFS, and parts 3 and 4. Okay, first of all, how did my illness start? So what's the background to my illness? I had problems with building stamina, strength and flexibility from a young age, despite lots of effort, and I started to fall behind in my early teens, I noticed. Any sustained effort to build fitness or strength resulted in fatigue, which forced me to stop with whatever exercise regime I'd started. The real problem started when I hit 21. I hurt myself playing 5-a-side football. The injury wouldn't clear up, and I began to get other aches and pains in both of my legs. Over the course of about 6 weeks, I lost a lot of flexibility. I went from being able to touch my toes to barely being able to touch my knees. I saw a doctor about this and had some physio, which seemed to help a little bit, but the problems continued to get worse, so I sought more serious medical advice. I went through a series of tests under a neurologist to try to get the condition identified and treated, but couldn't. In the meantime, I'd been attempting to carry on with my life as best I could. I'd applied for a job teaching English abroad. The job was about 6 months away at the time, and I thought I'd probably have my problems sorted out by then. I tried some alternative therapies during this period, which helped with some of the symptoms, and I decided to take the job anyway. I reasoned I could always come back if I got any worse. By this stage I couldn't run or do any sport. I couldn't lift much weight. I moved around quite awkwardly, and I had pretty low energy levels, but I could work and socialise, and I wanted to get on with my life. And it was while I was working abroad that things got really bad. Initially my decline was so slow it was difficult to tell from 1 month to the next whether I was getting worse or not. I changed jobs to try and get around this, but this didn't work. I was having some treatment which was helping with some of my symptoms, but wasn't making me any better. I kept going until one day I literally just collapsed at work. I couldn't manage to continue, and this began a new phase in my illness. Initially I was in an incredible amount of pain. I couldn't get comfortable at all. I could barely sleep because of the pain. I'd had to stop sleeping on an ordinary mattress several months prior to this, as the pain around my hips and spine and my muscles in general was simply too much. I started sleeping on a Japanese futon, which I still have to use today. That's spread out on the floor with the addition of a few blankets. The pain was a very intense burning pain, and it came with a lot of muscle soreness and ache as well. Anti-inflammatories didn't help. I could barely eat at the time. I was having a lot of problems with my digestion and a huge loss of appetite, although I wanted to eat. I lost a lot of weight over a short period of time. I couldn't get the illness diagnosed by doctors I saw in Japan, so I had to return home. I felt totally exhausted. I couldn't manage to do very much. I felt very stressed. I experienced a lot of shortness of breath, and I also experienced poor cognitive function and increased sensitivity. When I got home, I sought medical advice, which eventually resulted in a diagnosis of ME, because the neurologist couldn't diagnose anything else, although he said that he thought the problem was neurological. The initial round of very acute symptoms settled down a bit, but overall my condition continued to worsen. At this point I was still able to look after myself, although it was a real struggle, but I could no longer manage to work. I carried on like this for a couple of years before crashing out again and beginning the next phase of my illness, which I've been in now for about 8 years. In this phase I can no longer look after myself. I spend most of my time in bed. I can't cook for myself or do cleaning. I struggle with basic things, ordinary everyday things like having a shower and cleaning my teeth. That kind of thing can be really difficult to manage. I'm almost totally housebound, and my condition is continuing to get worse. The social effects of the condition are as bad as the physical effects. I'm pretty much totally isolated by my illness, and this isn't through choice. I can't go out, and I find it difficult to manage to have visitors. I have email contact with one friend who also has ME. Any general everyday interaction now seems to be practical. I can't remember the last time I had an ordinary conversation with anyone. All communication seems to be centred around my illness and trying to get things done, or make arrangements for appointments and that kind of thing. I've lost contact with pretty much everyone I knew before I became ill. It's simply become too difficult to keep in touch. It's difficult to have any kind of hobby or pastime as my energy levels are so low. Basically it's a very, very difficult illness to endure. Okay, that's it for this part. I'll add the next instalment in the next few days or so. I hope this has been of some use to you.